Hey, everybody. Welcome. Monday Night Football between Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, plus a Week 9 recap. It is the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for Monday, November 4th, 2024. I am Aaron Schatz. You know me as the DVOA guy from FTN Fantasy. He is Mike Tanier. Make sure you are subscribed to his Substack at miketanier.substack.com. Among the topics we're going to discuss today, the Saints firing Dennis Allen, whether the Falcons are actually Super Bowl contenders, what is up with Nick Sirianni's decision-making, and how great historically are the Lions and the Ravens. But first, I want to remind you about our sponsor, because the NFL season is totally underway, and the best way to experience it is with Underdog Fantasy, which is the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest growing app in the industry. Underdog offers a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on your first time deposit. It's really easy to use. Weekly contests, just pick over or under on various stats. Very easy. Head over to Underdog for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with code FTN, up to $1,000 extra. NFL season is here, and who better to celebrate with than Underdog Fantasy. Okay, so let's start with the news of the morning, or the news of last night. The first one came in at after I went to sleep at 1 a.m. or whatever. The Raiders fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy and their whole offensive staff.
Yeah.
And then the Saints this morning fired Dennis Allen after a 7-game losing streak. Now, I'll just to start with Allen, I will die on the hill that the Saints are not a bad team. Mm-hmm. That when everybody is healthy, they're a very mediocre team. And we can argue about that mediocre is a bad thing to be. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about their salary cap management, which sucks and has put them in this place. Right. But I don't think they're a terrible team. I don't feel like Dennis Allen was a terrible coach. On the other hand, he's clearly lost the locker room. And nobody ever thought he was a good coach. He was just sort of there. So I think you try not to completely lose your locker room, so you got to make a change.
It's a whole pile of meh. You're trying not to lose your locker room. And this is a team, they get swept by the Panthers. They were down 4 starting cornerbacks yesterday. 4 of their top 5 cornerbacks were unavailable. Olave gets hurt during the game. Rashid Shaheed is long gone. This is an absolutely injury-riddled team. But what did Dennis Allen ever bring to the table in the first place? I guess the question is, if this had happened in January, I'd been like, another Black Friday hiring. Instead, they went through kind of the motions of this. They had the 2-0 start, which was phenomenal when they were a healthier team, but I don't think that was sustainable no matter who the head coach was. Carr was out for a while. Carr comes back and he starts throwing murder balls to Olave, which causes a lot of a problem there. And they were asking on the Discord, it's like, well, why not Mickey Loomis? And the answer to that is Mickey Loomis has imperial power in that organization. And I was going over it, Joyce Benson runs the team. There had been a power struggle in the Benson family. She runs the team and the Pelicans and the family Mercedes-Benz dealerships. So Loomis is absolutely running things. So while he might be as culpable or more culpable than Dennis Allen, it has to take a ownership level decision to get him fired. And at ownership level, they've got a lot of balls in the air.
I mean, in the end of the day, everything with the Saints comes down to they have to take their salary cap pill.
Yes.
They have to do it. And it's going to be bad. And it's not going to be bad for a year. It's such a bad situation that it's going to be bad for 2 years. It's really bad. But they got to do it. They got to take the medicine, man.
This is the wake-up call. This year is the wake-up call. Because, again, you're right. They have this team where, if they're all together, this is a 9-8 team. But they're all older guys, and they've been relying on them for years. And there are street free agents behind them because of the way things are set up. So this is sort of the year where the 9-8 fell apart. Now it's time to take the medicine.
As far as Luke Getsy goes, the Raiders were 30th in offensive DVOA. Mm-hmm. What do you expect given the quarterbacks that they're using? You really look at that team with Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Desmond Ridder, and you go, the problem here is the offensive coordinator.
Yes. Clearly he's not getting the most out of these guys. You also trade away Devontae Adams, who goes on the I'm waiting for the trade list in about week 2. So you don't have as much at receiver as you want. You don't have a lot of talent in the offensive line. This is an organization that's flailing because I think Antonio Pierce is flailing. I think at the general managerial level, they're flailing. And so Gessie is the convenient guy to kind of toss under the bus as they try to figure out what they're doing.
All right. We take questions if you're watching us live, which we do at 11 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. So I'm going to fit in a question here before we get to talking about Mr. Nick Sirianni. And that is from Mike Roosh, sending it in early due to travel. Have the Cowboys and Bengals reached the sunk cost fallacy point of the season where they should clearly be sellers, but will talk themselves out of it? I think the answer is the Cowboys, yes. And the Bengals, no. The Bengals are 4-5 with an easy remaining schedule, and they are a good team by DVOA. They're 17th in DVOA, but it's a positive DVOA. They are better than their record. I keep wanting to poke them with a stick and be like, be the Bengals already. Come on. But if like T. Higgins gets healthy, like they are absolutely in the playoff race. The Cowboys should sell.
They should sell. I don't know. I'd have to start looking at the contract situation of these guys and say, can they move? Who is healthy? Who is not under a long-term deal, et cetera. Some of the guys you might look at, like Tank Lawrence, are hurt. Some of the other guys are indispensable, obviously. Like you're not just going to move them like a Parsons. Some of them, like Diggs, have these long contracts. The thing, it's not just sunk cost fallacy with the Cowboys. It's the rudderlessness of the team right now, as Jerry and Stephen Jones really don't have a plan. They didn't enter the season with a plan. And now I don't think they have a plan to move out of it.
The kind of piece they could trade would be like Eric Kendricks.
Yeah, right.
And then here's another one that I don't think anybody would be thinking of. Zach Martin.
Right.
Very likely to retire after this year.
Right. It's hard to
last year of his contract. Send him to a contender.
Right. It's hard to plug a guard in, but I guess you could plug a guard in. You could get him in there.
If the Vikings just plugged in a left tackle,
yeah,
some team that needs help at guard, like think about winning teams, like who could use help. There are definitely some teams that could use help at guard. I mean, Baltimore might be able to use it. Like there's definitely teams that could use help at guard that are in the playoff race. Send Martin to a playoff contender, and he's going to probably retire after this year.
The Houston Texans need help.
Yes.
Guard.
Oh, you're right. That's the trade they should make. I know it's a cross-state rivalry, but send Zach Martin to the Houston Texans and put Shaq Mason on the left side. That is a great idea.
I'm listening to Jerry in my mind explaining that he won't part with Zach Martin because he doesn't want to trade him to the Texans because of the awesome Cowboys-Texans rivalry. I'm thinking Jerry thinking that in his mind, and it's blowing.
But he is thinking that, and be honest, he's thinking that in his mind, right? Like, don't you think he would think that?
I don't want to try to think like Jerry Jones right now. It's only 11:08 in the morning. I have not had my whiskey.
So let's talk about Nick Sirianni, because a lot of controversial moves yesterday, and I saw a lot of criticism from people who are critical of analytics of the decisions that Nick Sirianni made. Now, there's the first is the going for it for 2 when you get to the 1 yard line.
Okay.
Now, historically, that takes you from like 50% to 60%.
Okay.
So it makes total sense.
Right.
Your estimated points scored going for 2 from the 1 are better than going for 2 from the 2.
Yes.
You go for 2 if a penalty takes you to the 1.
Yes.
The thing that I wonder about, and this is going to come up a lot with analytics decisions this year, is that I read that I didn't run the numbers myself. 2-point conversions are at less than 50% this year. They're at like 35 or 40%.
Interesting.
Do we think that's a permanent change, in which case it changes your strategy?
Right.
Or do we think that's a small sample size variation, in which case you don't change your strategy?
Right. And this is one of those things that I've been wondering for years as teams go for it more often on 4th down, and 4th down defense, 4th and short defense becomes more of a issue, and it's practiced and new tactics are developed and more practice time is devoted. Is it changing dynamically the percentages? And when we do when we do our 4th down bots, we're basing it on like 2019 or 2020, and it's not the same thing. I wonder about that too. In the Eagles case, all of those, they get the ball at the 1 due to Jaguars penalties. They're running the tush push. They're running the play that like is supposed to have and does have like a 90% success rate. And like those decisions were fine. I didn't like the one where they took the extra point off the board, frankly. But like the other
Are
one,
you talking? Oh, did the Eagles take an extra point off the board? Yes. Okay. I'm thinking field goal off the board was last Thursday in the Houston and Jets.
Right.
But yeah, extra point off the board.
They took an extra point off the board. The problem with Sirianni's decisions, those are like sort of the side dish. The entree is going for it in field goal range with, I believe, what was it, a 16-point lead or 13-point lead early in the game.
He went for it on 4th and 1 at the Jacksonville 25.
Yes.
With 1:25 left in the third quarter, up by 6.
Okay.
ESPN, which is, I think, the most conservative of the 3 public models.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of the 3 public models as ESPN, Next Gen Stats, and Ben Baldwin, ESPN is the most conservative. ESPN only had go for it as a 0.2% advantage in that situation.
Okay.
And then the real problematic one, and this is the one that you focused on and walked through this morning, was kicking the 57-yard field goal on 4th and 4 from the Jacksonville 39 with 2:16 left in the game. Yeah. ESPN said the best decision was to go for it, and the second best decision was to punt.
Yes.
And field goal was third.
Okay, because you're giving up that extra field position when you miss the field goal, and those couple of yards can make a difference. We're missing one, though. Okay, so that one was he made the worst of the 3 decisions there.
Oh, am I missing one of the fourth? Was there another 4th and 1?
Big one, which was a 4th and 3 in the second quarter with 4:55 to play. A crossing route to A.J. Brown that went incomplete from the 22-yard line, Jacksonville 22-yard line. Eagles are up 10-0. Field goal would put them up 13-0 at that point. Again, it's 4th and medium. It's not tush-push situation. It's not 4th and 1. And, you're kind of dictating in this game at this point. Okay, fine. So you decide you're going to be aggressive there. Then you turn around and you aren't aggressive later in the game. Like I could get my mind around this. This goes back, I think, for Eagles fans to the Saints game where he was all over the map. It's Brandon Staley-esque now. It's not analytics. It's not logical. He's not being aggressive. He's not being conservative. He's randomly doing the opposite of what you think he's going to do in every situation.
I'm going to assume this is the ESPN model, but Hitchhiker's Pie is looking at one of the models and says that on the 4th and 3 you're mentioning, it suggested the field goal, not the go.
Yeah, but look at that, 0.2 percentage points, which I guess it's close. Again, if he goes for both of them, I guess I understand it. If he kicks the field goal both times, I don't agree with it, but I understand it. If he punts, and I really look at that late game situation, that 4th and 4, that looked like a punt situation to me. If it had been 4th and 1, 4th and 2, I would have been go. If it had been 6 yards closer, whatever. That looked like punt, trust your defense in this situation. Instead, they put the defense, which came through in the end, in that very difficult situation.
So there's a lot of Twitter was a lot of discussion of like, if the Eagles lose in the playoffs, get rid of Sirianni.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like they need to look into another coach if they don't win the NFC?
Yeah. Or I mean, if they win a playoff game, I don't want to go there. If they go one and done in the playoffs, then I would seriously consider it. And I'm usually a dove when it comes to firing coaches with winning records, etc. But like this is bizarre. Like this is difficult, and I don't know what Sirianni is doing now with this team besides these decisions. When he's not doing as much play calling, game planning, I don't look at this team still, even though like a lot of the issues are going and say, well, they're united and the culture is like airtight or whatever. What is he doing besides going out there and making these wackadoodle 4th down decisions? And a lot of them are very difficult to justify. So yeah, I mean, I got some notes from the bar. People wanted to fire Sirianni on the spot at that point. You know how that goes. But
I mean, Big Cheese 77 says, what if Washington wins the NFC East? I think that given how well Daniels is playing, the question is less, does Washington win the division, and more, do the Eagles win in the first round of the playoffs? If the Eagles are a wild card, but they go on the road and win in the first round of the playoffs, then he can say, I won a playoff game.
Well, we got 2 Washington Eagles games coming up here. Let's see what happens. If the Commanders win because they sweep the Eagles.
Yeah, that also.
Then we have our answer. So we'll let that play out.
The other situation we should talk about is the Seahawks going for the 4th and 1 in overtime. What's interesting to me about this decision is First of all, ESPN's model had it as a 0.2% advantage. Okay. That's the amount of advantage where you go, okay, given some of the other facts in this game, like the fact that the Rams defensive line has been completely destroying our offensive line all game, let's not do that. Next Gen Stats had it as a 14.5% advantage, which is the kind of advantage where you go, well, screw the fact that our offensive line sucks. You got to go for this. So the difference in the models is pretty incredible. I did email Brian Burke from ESPN, and he thinks it may have to do with the sample size that's used for overtime. Like, are you using just overtimes in your overtime sample, or are you using like fourth quarters in your overtime sample to get a larger sample?
That's nuts. Because if that's
a really big difference.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, our model only uses overtime for overtime. Then you do not have the data to make the decision. You don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's just too small a sample. But he doesn't know for sure. That was his guess. You asked me to look up the red zone offense for Seattle. It's better than you think.
Impossible.
It's 25th.
It's 25th?
Yes.
With all their
worst
turnovers,
is Cleveland.
All their turnovers in the red zone, and they're 25th.
And Dallas is also horrible.
Dallas is horrible. I did see that. And they're horrible both ways, where they can't stop anybody in the red zone defensively. But the Seahawks have been making turnover after turnover after turnover in the red zone over the last couple of weeks. I'm guessing it was better earlier in the season. They have a real problem with their red zone offense. I liked the play call. I liked we're going to hammer it off tackle. I didn't think that was a bad decision with a fullback, an extra tight end, etc.
Right, and it was the left side, which is the better side of the Seattle offensive line.
Right. But when you look at, you say, the other game situations, you mentioned the fact that like the Seahawks defensive line was getting destroyed. The Rams could not move the ball at all in the fourth quarter. The Rams were trying to protect the lead after the pick six, and they're going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Seahawks get the ball back, another turnover. Seahawks get the ball back, another mistake, then they get the touchdown. The Rams weren't moving the ball. You kick that field goal there, and you say, maybe we can really trust our defense at this point. Now, it turns out you couldn't.
It turns out you couldn't, but I understand the thought process of kicking the field goal. Now, interestingly, the Rams have not been good in short yardage this year, even though the defensive line is the strength of their defense. But in that game, it really felt like that defensive line was really dominating.
Yeah, they were
Verse and Fisk and Hoyt and everybody.
Right, they got constant penetration during the course of that game. So, it's a game where I look at it, and the Seahawks lose this game. When they throw the pick six, when they have all these opportunities to come back and they don't. They have these other times during the course of that game that things fell apart for them. That's just like the fulcrum. But they're not good enough. They're not good enough a team.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons, because they were your lead today.
Yes.
And you said you don't want to write it. You don't want to write it. You don't want to write it. But the Falcons are Super Bowl contenders.
Super Bowl.
And I'm actually going to argue with you.
All right.
Because I think the Falcons are still the team that we kind of thought they were before the season, except a little bit better. Because Kirk Cousins has definitely been, unlike Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins looks like he's totally over the Achilles, and he's been playing very well. And that offense looks very nice, and we know they have lots of good pieces and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons are 13th in DVOA. is
it like a fifth on offense and a
fifth on offense, 21st on defense, and 23rd on special teams?
Okay.
So that, I mean, is the team that's 13. I mean, if offense is more consistent than defense, maybe they finish like 10th. Okay. Is the team that's 10th the team that could win the Super Bowl? Sure.
Right.
But I don't feel like they're a major Super Bowl contender. They're 5-1 in games decided by 6 points or fewer.
Okay.
Right now, the playoff odds have them winning the division 81% of the time, but they only make the Super Bowl 6.1% of the time, which ranks them 10th, right ahead of the Packers.
There's a lot here. First of all, yesterday was one of those 6 points or less games.
Yeah. But it was BS at the end that Dallas came back. Because that last Dallas score was kind of like late BS. Yeah.
Right. They are winning a lot of close games. That was a lot of BS there. The division, I have the odds right now. I know you've got yours. Their odds to win the division in terms of the house are minus 1,000. Again,
I think that Tampa Bay's odds are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for because their last 7 games are so easy.
They do have an easy stretch at the end. Maybe,
but it's more likely to me that Tampa Bay wins a wild card.
Right. If they manage to be a wild card, because the wild card seats are filling up right now because
True, but I could see a situation where Tampa Bay loses the next 2 games to Kansas City and San Francisco, and then goes 6-1 at the end of their schedule because it's really easy.
Wow. Okay.
That would put them at 10-7. That would probably win a wild card.
Okay. You still have the Falcons winning that division. They're the healthiest team, which I think is a big part of it right now, particularly in that division. And, that's a factor you're looking at. The Lions are the best team we're going to talk about. The Lions are the best team in the NFC, best team in the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. But it can't just be, the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl or win the NFC as a result. There have to be other teams on the list. You start making the Packers. I have a hard time with that argument right now after what we saw yesterday. The Commanders are fine. I mean, they're a really good team. If we neck and neck the issues of the Commanders versus the issues of the Falcons, I think the Falcons are a better team.
Well, they're very similar teams.
Yes.
Right? Great offense and bad defense.
Right. I look at the personnel on offense and my trust of them down the stretch. I trust the Falcons more than I trust a rookie quarterback and Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz and Noah Brown and Hail Marys, et cetera there. So that's kind of what I did there. It's like, if you want to say we're gonna doubt the Falcons in January, trust me, I'll be there doubting the Falcons in January. But the idea there is a very good chance that that's a 13-win team.
Yeah, they could be the 2 seed. They could be the 2 seed, in which case they get a home game. They get 2 straight home games.
Right. They get 2 straight home games. You get these huddled masses of wild card in there, and then you're going to Detroit for a championship game. So that's where I'm coming from with this team. The one, and again, we thought they were this in the preseason. They might still be that from the preseason, but the Saints aren't what we thought they were going to be. Buccaneers have had too many injuries. Other teams, the Cowboys have fallen off. There's room at the top of the NFC board for a team like this.
Super Glucose says, I do think the Falcons could win a wild card round game, which I think they could. Yeah.
They're facing Arizona. Who are they going to be facing? The Packers when they're in turnover mode.
I guess I feel a little bit like I like Washington a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I like Philly a little bit better. I like Minnesota a little bit better.
I don't like Minnesota better.
And I feel like whoever comes out of the NFC West, I'm still riding this 49ers once they get CMC back idea.
Right.
I just don't see the Falcons as one of the top 4, contenders in the NFC.
I can't advocate for the 49ers right now based on their track record. I was finishing my editing when it was 7-0 Colts at halftime. Yeah. So that's my impression of the Vikings right now. I'm listening to Matt LaFleur talk about how I'm sick of hearing about Jordan Love's interceptions. We're all sick of watching them, Matt. Do something about them. And you've got this very efficient offense. Again, the pass rush is a huge, huge problem. It's also a huge Lions problem they're getting away with right now. So
yes, although let's talk about how good the Lions and Ravens are historically, because we should note that the story went out last night that the Lions are very likely trading for Zadarius Smith today.
Right.
So that gives them a pass rusher, not a great pass rusher, but a definite improvement on the pass rush.
Right.
The Lions are the 5th best team through 8 games in DVOA history. Yeah, it goes 07 Patriots and 91 Redskins, 85 Bears, then the 07 Colts.
Okay.
And then the Lions and the 96 Packers are basically tied.
The 07 Colts were that team that started out 10-1, but they were beating the daylights out of the Texans. And
07 was a really weird year where you had the Colts and the Cowboys were really, really good.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't matter because the Patriots were the best team ever.
Right.
And then we had that game that we actually watched together.
That's right, over at Chicken Pete's.
Patriots game.
Oh, gosh.
That was the day you told me about this kid you used to teach, Joe Flacco, and how he was going to be a draft pick.
We're sold. We're sold.
And the Colts fell off a little bit, and the Cowboys fell off a little bit near the end of the season. But the 07 Colts were really good team in the first half of the regular season, especially.
It's the murderer's row, though. The 07 Patriots and the 91 Skins.
That's where the Lions start is. That's where the Lions start is up there. Yeah.
Oh
It's pretty wild.
It is. Absolutely. And somebody mentioned on the Discord, because they posted it, they've been outgained in several of their wins. They've been outgained yardage-wise.
Yeah, and DVOA still thinks they played really well.
Right. And watching them, they played really, really well. I think they give up garbage time yards, or,
Yeah, it's garbage time yards and just a lot of like the more plays against them, but the efficiency isn't as good. And yeah.
Interesting.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, there still is this feeling that when the Lions play a team that their lack of a pass rush is a real problem, then it'll be a real problem. But let's see what happens if they add the Darius Smith.
Right. They're doing everything they can, and that just shows in the NFC, in the NFL, there's no flawless team.
And it's also, when are they going to play that team? The Super Bowl?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Is that team that the offensive line is so good that the Lions pass rush can't get anything? Is that the Chiefs?
Ravens?
It may not be the Chiefs. Iceman says they play Buffalo on December 15th.
There you go. Hey, Buffalo, you might want to fix the run defense before then, guys. You might want to fix the run defense before you face the Lions, guys.
The Baltimore Ravens are the number 3 offense in DVOA history through 9 games.
Jackson is unreal.
Jackson is unreal this year.
Yes. Absolutely amazing synergy. Now that he has Henry back there, that Flowers creates all these opportunities.
I don't think that's a crazy statement. I think if you've watched the Ravens, the idea that the Ravens have one of the best offenses ever is not a crazy statement at all, even though there's no receiver who makes you go, boy, that guy's a legend. There's no Randy Moss, but you watch that team and Henry and the way they run and Jackson and how he's playing, plus Flowers, and it's just so good.
It is. And they kind of showed what they could do against the Broncos, a little bit of a reality check game where even when they were sputtering a little in the first quarter and getting caught off guard by the speed of the Broncos defense, they were able to turn that game around very, very quickly.
Hitchhiker's Pipe points out Lamar's passing efficiency is also way above his rushing numbers, and he makes everything easier for Henry, which is true. We know that mobile quarterbacks make it easier on the running back, and if you don't believe me, just ask Jonathan Taylor, running against the Minnesota Vikings. Here's a question from Camden Caps. As a Chiefs fan, should I be more worried about the Lions in the Super Bowl or the Ravens defense figuring it out?
Ravens defense figuring it out.
I think that you may be right that the Ravens defense should be better than this.
Yes.
But I will note that you're probably playing the Ravens at home.
Okay.
And you're playing the Lions in a dome, which is a neutral site.
Yes. Now, I think the Ravens are coming around a little bit. They caught an interception early in Sunday's game instead of dropping it. That's one of the little improvements they have. Hard to tell because you're facing Bo Nix, and after Nix is playing from behind, he's just spraying the ball out there. But I think there was some signs of progress.
The other historic team I should mention really quick, the Tennessee Titans with the second worst special teams unit ever. 2
blocked punts this year. What else have I missed?
They allowed a 45-yard and a 25-yard punt return, I think, yesterday.
Interesting.
Their punt coverage is horrendous.
Wow, that's wild. I stopped caring about the Titans, folks. I apologize to
right. This is not something people would notice in the same way, but it's bad.
Interesting.
All right. We talk usually about the games with the reverse post-game win expectancy, and there were 2 of them this week.
Oh.
First is part of my whole Saints are mediocre, not bad flag waving. The Panthers had only an 8.5% chance of beating the Saints. The Saints had about a yard per play more than the Panthers and ran more plays and won the turnover battle and lost the game.
Right. Basically, and I did not watch that game a lot. They let the Panthers get another chance. We were watching it on a side TV, and it's like, oh, this is over. Turn around again. Panthers have the ball back. Another opportunity to, just break through.
The other interesting one, the Bills, 38% against the Dolphins. The Dolphins had more yards per play, even with the nonsense BS lateral 24-yard loss at the end of the game. And they basically had the same number of plays with an even turnover battle, and they needed a 61-yard field goal to win the game.
The Dolphins were running the ball right down the throat of the Bills, and that's a potential problem for the Bills. Bills also making a lot of mistakes in the red zone in the first half of that game, which made it close. But that run defense is something that's a real worry. Like if you talk about the Ravens pass defense being a worry, Bills run defense is a worry.
I will say, Achane, I saw something somewhere. He's basically fantasy Superman in the games where Tua is healthy.
Interesting.
But terrible in the games where Tua was out.
I don't know. I mean, part of it is that opens up the swing passes and some of the other things when Tua is there. That game, it was him and Mostert. It was up the middle. It was like there was not a lot of gingerbread and creativity and four guys going in motion, et cetera. They were actually pounding the ball, which was surprising against the Bills. When you're the Dolphins, you expect everything to be, over-engineered.
Let's count up the DVOA top 12.
Oh, boy.
Teams 10 to 12 are very close together.
Okay.
Up 2 spots at number 12, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Good defense, enough offense. We're not going to do the Herbert thing right now.
Down 4 spots at number 11, the Houston Texans.
Oof, Thursday night was...
That whole middle of the offensive line. What's amazing is that it's not just Kenyon Green is bad. Right. Shaq Mason is much worse than he was last year, and Juice Scruggs is much worse than he was last year. And what happened?
Right. It seems like teams are doing a lot of slants, a lot of twists, messing these guys up, and no one in there seems to be able to adjust to it.
And CJ cannot keep taking sacks that are 13 freaking yards or whatever. Like, dude. No.
Yes, he does take big
keep dropping back and waiting that last extra 2 seconds trying to make something happen. Go down for 4.
Right.
And live to fight on 2nd and 14.
And they got to help him with a little bit more of a quick game. There's not a lot of quick passing in that offense. Let him get the ball in the perimeter fast, out of the ball hand fast, and now slow the pass rush down a bit.
Number 9, up 3 spots, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go ahead.
And number 8, Green Bay.
Okay.
Did not fall that much, surprisingly.
No.
Number 7, Washington.
It's very strong. Both sides of the ball. Good win yesterday.
Number 6, falling a little bit, is Buffalo.
Okay. Again, tough victory.
Number 5, DVOA still loves them despite the injuries, San Francisco 49ers.
Yep. Let's see what happens when they come off the bye.
Number 4, the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes, weird game. Weird game. Weird.
Number 3, and helped a little bit by some stat corrections that I did last week, is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. What'd you do?
Number 2 is the Ravens, and number 1 is the Lions.
What'd you do with the Chiefs?
I just fixed some penalties that were missing, and I did some at the NFL stat fixes where certain plays are determined to be scrambles or not scrambles, or are determined to be like an extra yard here or there or whatever. And whatever that was, those changes boosted the Chiefs a little bit and dropped the Bills a little bit.
I could see when Patrick Mahomes is doing things, there being a confusion whether it was a scramble or a designed run when he's,
which changes what the opponent adjustment is, because I treat scrambles as passes, whereas designed runs get run adjustments. And so,
Interesting.
So move the Chiefs up a little bit, which I feel pretty fine with.
Yeah, no, that works.
I feel like despite the fact that they're undefeated, the Chiefs being the 3rd best team is a statement that makes sense to me.
It feels right based on what we see week in and week out. And it doesn't feel right? Tonight's 9-point spread.
Okay, good. I agree with you. Bucks 4-4 at Chiefs 7-0. Despite the injuries, I feel like the Bucks to cover this, even if it's a backdoor cover, just feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think this is going to be a mucky defense first game between two teams that are trying to compensate for a lack of wide receiver talent. And the Chiefs have a habit of backdoor covering games like these. I mean, of winning, but winning close in games like these. I said,
whatever the ops or leaving the back door open, I guess.
Thank you.
The Chiefs are in the playoffs pretty much no matter what. The Bucs playoff chances are 64% if they win this game and 38% if they lose. So it's actually pretty important. And I did talk about their schedule and how easy it gets. These are the last 7 games for the Bucs.
All right.
Giants, Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints.
Wow. You got fired coaches, fired coordinators, the Panthers. No, that is an opportunity for them to do what they do best, which is wind up in the playoffs somehow.
Michael Allen Brewer says, watching Kansas City this year is like watching a professional plate spinner. You keep waiting for everything to fall, and somehow it never does. Don't let Nick Wright know that you said that, but yeah, it is kind of like that. Like you feel like we have them with a 4.9% chance of going undefeated, which is 6.4% if they win this game. I just don't think it's going to happen. Like they're going to have a game where they can't keep the plate spinning. The question is, with the Chiefs, is just the playoffs, right? Because they're going to be the number 1 seed. And so somebody has to go into Kansas City and beat them.
When they have that 3 turnover game against the Broncos defense or against the Chargers defense, and that it's not going to matter. It's not going to have any impact on anything in the long run. And if this was a different team with this overall track record, you'd say, well, there's probably a lot of luck, randomization in there because of their history and their track record and who we're talking about. There's a benefit of the doubt that creeps in, saying they are professional plate spinners, not people who just got lucky and are,
Camden Cap says, I don't trust our tackles against Bulls. Well, the fact is that Tampa Bay is not very high in the ESPN pass rush win rate.
Interesting. Okay.
So if they want to bring pressure, I think they got to blitz.
Yeah, and that's what Bulls
like the saying, don't blitz Mahomes, don't blitz Mahomes, don't blitz Mahomes.
Right.
So,
and Bulls is going to blitz Mahomes.
Red Matt says they're the best coached team in football, which helps when finding ways to win. This is why I said yesterday on Twitter that my least favorite commercial of the year is the State Farm one where Andy Reid acts like a complete moron. And someone said to me that I was some kind of Chiefs hater. And I was like, wait, you mean if you're a Chiefs fan, you want one of the greatest coaches of all time to act like a bubbling idiot? That's what you want as a Chiefs fan? No. If
you're a Chiefs fan, you have to actively root for their commercials as well. Eat some chunky soup, buddy. Have fun with that.
The chunky soup, whatever. All the Kelsey commercials are so much better than Andy Reid going Bumble Rooski or Bundle Roos, whatever that.
I have not seen this one.
Oh my God. Speaking of Kelsey, by the way, the Bucs are 30th in DVOA against tight ends, which might be a problem.
Kelsey's still
there. I wonder what that Noah Gray over is.
Oh my goodness. I'm not going to look it up right now.
Don't look it up, but they've gone to Noah Gray a lot this year.
They have gone to Noah Gray a lot. Okay, I'm looking it up.
If the Bucs have problems with tight ends, and he's the second tight end that they're caring about.
I like the way you're thinking, but I'm not going to be able to pull this up in time.
No, it's fine. It's out there.
It's out there. Yeah, go find it. You can find
it. Go find it. Go at it. Noah Gray.
Underdogs, fantasy tools.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. A reminder, by the way, of course, if you are listening as a podcast or on YouTube, just like the show, rate it, subscribe to it, tell your friends about it. We're here Mondays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So we will be back this Thursday to preview Week 10 in the NFL. Until then, enjoy Monday Night Football. This has been the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast from FTN Fantasy. Talk to you Thursday.